In recent years, there's been a big push for the uptake of EVs. They offer very low running costs compared to petrol and diesel cars, and there are zero tailpipe emissions. However, in the Indian context, there has existed a third fuel choice which has been offered for a few years now, and that is CNG. So now the question becomes should you be buying CNG or should you be buying EV? Well, we brought both powertrains with us today to answer one very important question. Just how practical are these two cars and what are you looking at in terms of running costs? Well, you might be wondering, why the Tiago first? Well, it's because these cars have the multiple powertrain options. So you got the iCNG AMT, you got the EV, and because they're the same size and essentially except for the powertrain, they're almost identical, they offer the best option to do this comparison, especially when you're considering cost. To simplify matters for you, our viewers, we have broken this comparison down into a few basic subheads. We start with practicality, how these cars run and drive, the range and mileage is involved with both these cars, what the time it takes to charge or fuel up in terms of the CNG, and most importantly, the kind of costs that will be involved in your daily driving. Now, before we start with this comparison, if you enjoy this video, remember to hit that like button. And for more such content, to subscribe to the Car and Bike channel and hit the bell notification to stay up to date on all the latest content. And lastly, do remember to share this with your friends as well. We start things off with practicality. These are both Tiagos, so they have the same platform, same body shell, same dimensions. So you're looking at cabins which are broadly the same in terms of space and comfort. Yes, there are some differences, but that comes down to the packaging. In the EV, the battery pack is under the floor, so you might be sitting slightly higher than in the CNG. And in the CNG tank itself sits in the boot, so it eats into boot space. While the petrol Tiago will have 242 liters of boot space, the EV it's reduced to 240, which in real life will not make much of a difference. The CNG is a different matter. While this has the dual cylinder technology, you have only 107 liters of boot space. While on a conventional CNG with a single big cylinder in the back, you will probably not be able to put anything inside. Now we come to the range and mileage of these two cars, and here things get a little on the trickier side. For the EV, well, on a city loop in our test, it gave us an average range of about 175 kilometers with regen set on 1, which is the default setting on this car. On the highway, we got about 205 kilometers out of the car, though we estimate if you, on your daily driving cycle, expect this car to do at least about 185 kilometers of range. Moving to the CNG, that returned about 18.8 kilometers per kilogram on the city loop and about 20 kilometers per kilogram on the highway. That said, it takes about 8 kilos on a full tank of CNG, so we expect a range of about 145 kilometers in your daily cycle. That said, you still get a 35-liter petrol tank on that CNG car, so you can get at least 400 kilometers of additional range should you require it. Coming to the drivability, we start things off with the iCNG. Well, this is a typical internal combustion engine car. You got a 1.2-liter engine up front, a 5-speed AMT gearbox here, so it's the computer and actuators that are engaging the clutch and switching gears for you. So there is a bit of lag in acceleration as the car changes gears. You can minimize some of that if you went for the manual, but for the most part, you will still have a bit of lag as you change gears. The EV, you get none of that. It's a single-speed gearbox and acceleration is smooth and linear from the get-go. The other side is the noise level inside the cabin. It is slightly higher in an internal combustion engine car, given that some engine noise can also creep into the cabin aside from wind noise and road noise. On a budget EV, they're probably only dealing with wind noise and road noise. So there's that plus as well. And additionally, you won't feel any vibrations from the electric motor. Even in terms of performance, the EV will have a leg up on the CNG. It's more powerful, the power is available more immediately, so you get going that much faster and it picks up speed a lot faster too. Plus, because there's only a single-speed gearbox, there is no interruption in acceleration. In the ride and handling department, here too, the EV might feel slightly better compared to an internal combustion engine car, and that might have to do with the weight of the battery pack under the floor. The lower center of gravity and heavier weight will make the car feel a little more stable than your typical internal combustion car. The CNG in isolation, this one at least, is quite good. It takes the handles bumps quite well, though it does feel a little unsettled. Well, we start with the simple option first, and that is the CNG. With the CNG, the wait time depends on which petrol pump you end up at and the time of day. Go to one frequented by taxis and you could have to wait a while, but if the filling station near you is empty, you're done in a matter of minutes. Then of course, you can have the third tank filled with the more expensive, depending on the state, petrol, that offers a protective layer should you run out of CNG. Coming to the EVs, well, you have multiple charging options, ranging from home charging at 3.3 kilowatts or 7.2 kilowatts should you pick that option, or fast chargers which range from 7.2 kilowatt AC to over 100 kilowatts DC. However, for the sake of simplicity, we will stick to the more medium range capacities for DC fast charging, as the higher end models will not be suitable for your most budget end EVs. Home charging is the most affordable option to charge an EV, which gives you a cost of as little as rupees 1 per kilometer based on the electricity rate charged in the city. Yes, you can charge a EV at home while you sleep at night, and that is a big plus and gives you the lowest cost option for charging. But determining the actual price for this is hard, as it's tagged on to your existing electricity bill in most cases. Additionally, based on your electricity uses, the electricity rate per unit also differs, as most service providers charge slab rates based on how much you're consuming. For the sake of this comparison, we have taken the highest slab rate currently chargeable by the BEST in Mumbai, and that gives you an average cost per kilometer of about 1.5 rupees. Additionally, you also have public chargers spread across cities, ranging from the 7.2 kilowatt AC and DC chargers ranging from 25 kilowatts to over 100 kilowatts. Sticking with the more medium range chargers, costs range between about 15 on the lower side to round about 25 to 30 on the higher side. Moving to the charging times itself, well, that also depends on the vehicle you're driving and the kind of charging it supports. Sticking with what we have here, the Tiago EV, Tata says it takes about 58 minutes for a 25 kilowatt DC fast charger to juice up the battery from 10 to 80%. In reality though, if you want to charge it up to 100, expect to wait for at least 1.5 hours at a charging station. For the home charging options, well, the optional 7.2 kilowatt AC charger charges up the battery from 10 to 100% in a claimed 3.6 hours, while a 3.3 kilowatt wall box or a 15 amp socket will take roughly about 9 hours to charge up the battery. Now we come to the most important and perhaps the boring aspect of this comparison, which is the cost analysis between the CNG and the EV. Starting with the CNG, this Tiago iCNG AMT will set you back about 10 lakhs on road in Mumbai, and a full tank of CNG will cost about rupees 600 at the current rate of 73.5 rupees per kilogram. The twin tanks in the back hold about 8 kilograms of CNG and give you a real world range of about 145 kilometers based on our usage of this car. This equates to a running cost of about 4.14 per kilometer. Moving to EVs, well, it's a little more complex, as you mentioned before. With the service provider charging you slab rates, determining an actual cost per kilometer depends on how much electricity you're consuming at home. For the sake of this comparison, we have taken the highest slab rate currently applied by Bombay's BEST, and that brings the total cost for a full charge to about rupees 281.5. And at an estimated range for the EV of about 185 kilometers, this gives you a figure of roughly rupees 1.5 per kilometer. Public fast chargers will of course bump this up, with cost per units generally starting around rupees 15 per unit mark, with most mid-capacity chargers pricing hovering in the 20 to 25 mark. Sticking at a rupees 22 per unit rate, we estimate a full charge to cost about 528 rupees, which does take your cost per kilometer up to rupees 2.93. Then, of course, you have to factor in the price of the EV itself. The Tiago EV itself costs about 12.6 lakh on road in Mumbai and is about 2.5 lakhs more expensive than the iCNG AMT. Divide the additional outlay with the difference in cost per kilometer of the two cars, and you realize you will need to drive almost 95,000 additional kilometers in the EV to make up the cost difference. Averaging about 15,000 kilometers a year, you're still looking at roughly 6.3 years to make up that additional investment. However, we would like to clarify that these are based on our calculations and rough estimated prices. Actual prices and how much cost per kilometer returns per car will depend on your driving style and the prices of the fuel and electricity in your city. So now the question that arises is, which one should you buy? The EV or the CNG? Well, let's break it down. The EV has the better overall package and has a smoother powertrain in comparison to what you get in the CNG. The advantage for the CNG though is that you have a lot more range, considering that you have the CNG tanks and the petrol tank on board should you require it. And of course, the waiting time at the CNG pump. While you're looking at something at about half an hour waiting at max to a few hours at a charging station for a full charge. That said, the EV has a higher initial investment compared to the CNG, but a lot lower running cost at about rupees 1 per kilometer should you use a charger at home. The CNG running cost meanwhile is around 4 per kilometer. So which one should you buy? Well, if you have a bare minimum running per month, then you might as well just buy a petrol car. If you're having higher mileage requirements, then that is when the CNG makes more sense. But should you be really racking in the miles on a monthly basis, that is when you should consider an EV. Well, it's either that or you just want to go green. Well, that's all for today. If you do have any queries or comments, do make sure to write them down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, remember to hit the like button and to share it with your friends.